October 18th meeting of the Government Operations and Regulations Committee. I will take roll. Chair Benedict is absent. Councilmember Cash present. Hancock absent. Nash present. Vice Chair Parker present. Porterfield absent. Stiles absent. Swope absent. Councilmember Withers is here, and Councilmember Young is here. So thank you all for being here. We have quorum. Just going to run through the agenda. We'll start with RS 2022-1805 by Councilmember Parker, referred to the, exempts 808 Vibe Place from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a short-term rental property, not owner-occupied permit. Do we have a motion?
I'll move it for you.
It's been moved. Is it seconded? You've got all the agendas. Would you give one to Councilmember Nash, please?
Sorry about that.
All right, so this is probably moved and seconded before us. I would just move for approval with a brief explanation, if that's all right. This is a building, it's by the Grimies in East Nashville on East Trinity Lane. This is a complex that was largely built and marketed as short-term rentals. So I've been okay with, sort of, a lot of these have been operating as short-term rentals prior, and due to new regulations, they require to come before this board for exemptions when they renew their permits. And so I'm generally supportive of, if folks are already doing it and been following the rules, letting them keep doing that. So I'm okay with this one. Is any discussion on this? Yes, sir.
I'm assuming the neighbors would agree with you?
I have not heard any negative feedback from neighbors on this one. There is a public hearing tonight that was properly noticed, so I suppose if there is any neighborhood concern, we'll have time to defer it and have a meeting or something.
Great. So the neighbors are themselves short-term rentals. So.
Yes, the complex as a whole is there's a few neighbors on more residential streets. I believe Dozier might back up to this, that folks do get notices and have commented in the past, but did not receive any comments about this one. So
I can say I have no complaints on it. I once camped out next door to this place on the front lawn of Grimies.
Were you getting like a record? Was it a record release?
All my friends were getting like a Taylor Swift vinyl, and I was just there for fun.
That sounds fun.
And
Next time
I
you're
had
doing
no
that,
I had no complaints over the short-term rentals. I saw some bachelorettes stumbling in, and I guess they went to bed. You didn't hear anything, so.
Step out of your Airbnb and grab a Taylor Swift.
They didn't bother me or the other 50 people at 4 a.m. camping out at
on
Grimies.
record store day.
Great.
It was record store day, yeah.
That's fun. They do it big at Grimies. Anyway, put this for a vote. All those in favor of recommending approval of this resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we've got 5-4-0 against. Up next, RS 2022-1806 by Councilmember Withers. This exempts Jane's Hideaway, located at 407 Gallatin Ave, from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a beer permit. Do we have a motion?
Moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Councilmember Withers, can you tell us about this?
This is somewhat confusingly, this used to be called Bar 308, and it is next door to Dino's. But Bar 308 closed, and so Jane's Hideaway, I think, has been downtown and relocated here. They're actually already open. They've opened with just liquor sales only. But so they're requesting permission to sell beer. Had no concerns. They're actually a live music venue.
That's cool.
So
Do we know who Jane is hiding from?
I don't know. Maybe a good investigator could help us.
All right, well, another venue on Gallatin sounds phenomenal. Any other comments, questions about Jane's Hideaway beer distance waiver? All right, so all those in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? All right, recommend approval 5-0. Up next, we have Resolution 2022-1810 by Roten and Parker. This approves an intergovernmental lease agreement between the Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Metropolitan Government for the sharing of fiber optic cable assets for network communications. Do we have a motion on this?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Do we have anyone who's able to comment on this here? I was just curious. I'm aware that we have this sort of dark fiber network or fiber network, this sort of municipal asset, and I was just curious if you're I should have let you know that I was going to ask this, but can you just give us a little bit of information about what that is and what the scope of it is and what this agreement entails?
Sure. I mean,
if you'd introduce yourself, please. You're not.
Keith Durbin. I'm the Chief Information Officer for Metro Government and the Director of the Information Technology Services Department. So a network a computer network, and I'm going to start with basics, making no assumptions. A computer network is a physical wired network around with communications, travels. And in this day and age, you can either build your own at some cost, or AT&T and Verizon and other big providers will provide that to you at an ongoing operating cost. Historically, kind of from 20, 30 years ago, we had arrangements to buy dark fiber to join facilities like this, the police headquarters, fire headquarters, HOB, kind of major facilities. And those costs escalate tremendously over time. So we made a decision about 10 years ago to develop Metro's own fiber plant that we could control. Fiber is an asset that basically has no limits. Every couple of years, the amount of throughput increases because technology advances. And so it is absolutely standard practice for municipal governments to, if they don't have a fiber plant asset of their own to operate their own networks, to put one in place. And so we have that. We have about 60 miles of our own fiber in place right now, and because of the transportation plan that NDOT has, we've got plans for another 50. It's around the county, it's redundant, the major pikes, and it's a great asset. TDOT, for their own reasons, has similar types of assets in place. And there is some places that it makes sense for us to just use their assets versus, and likewise for them to use ours rather than building redundant fiber. And so that's what this agreement does, is it lets us ride on their fiber where it makes more sense through this agreement, and then in turn lets them ride on our fiber. Obviously, it's all segmented and there's not a situation where we're seeing each other's traffic or anything, but it's a really smart thing to do.
Fantastic, yeah, and I, that sounds, for the purposes of this agreement, sounds amazing and sensible. Is there any, has there been any talk about, because like I'll see, like in my district, we'll see different fiber network build-outs sort of stepping on one another's toes and cutting off each other's service and tearing up a sidewalk 3 or 5 times in the same 2-year period. And so, is the capacity, is there any movement or discussion about building the capacity of like the municipal network to where we're leasing it out to Verizon or we're leasing it out to these communications companies so they're not kind of going out with their own last mile stuff throughout the city and stepping on each other's toes, or is that not in the scope of this program?
In practical terms, in this world, it is not a practical thing. If we were in a different type of market, that may be something. A situation like Chattanooga, that where Chattanooga is a global star because their EPB, Electric Power Board, 15 years ago was farsighted enough to say we're going to do all our meter reading by fiber, and so they got fiber to home. We were not that forward looking, so they have an asset that if anyone would be in a position to kind of let other providers share that, it would be Chattanooga. What has actually happened is that providers kind of view that as an existential threat and just don't bother. And so it's not something that it's a practical thing in our market here. But I understand the issue that you're talking about because we see it. It's the competitive aspect of things. And my attorney is not here to speak to, because Terry Costonis is very versed in, state franchise law. There's nothing in this state that helps them, incentivizes them to play well together. It gives them a lot of individual capabilities.
Okay.
I know that's a long and winding answer, but.
It is, and I don't want to get too far into that discussion based on this agreement that we have before us that's pretty limited as an intergovernmental agreement, so maybe sometime you and I could speak about that.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
And bring others to give other viewpoints to it as well.
Thank you, yes. Well, back to the agreement. Does anyone have any questions, comments, discussion about the agreement that's before us? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? Okay, thank you. All right, next we have bills on second reading. BL 2022-1405 by Parker, Allen, Henderson, and Porterfield. This amends section 1332-165 of the Metro Code to permanently extend the provisions for countywide sidewalk cafes. Do we have a motion on this?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. So this is, if I may, this is 1/3 of our sort of outdoor dining program that we put together. This is specifically the sidewalk cafe portion. So there's sort of 3 categories. This is one of them, and this is where there's a sidewalk that's wide enough to allow ADA access. Folks can set up, small tables. Initially, we did this as a kind of a, oh my gosh, people need to be able to eat outside during COVID. We found that it was kind of a thing that people like doing and we want to continue doing if possible. So I've been working with the administration and NDOT and council staff on this substitute. And I've had a lot of back and forth with NDOT, and I think we're in a place where they feel great about it, the administration feels good about it, and I feel good about it. So with that, I would move this substitute that we have here.
Second.
All right, substitute's been seconded. And this, initially the legislation I filed was just, hey, we're making this thing permanent. This really gives, I think Director Alarcon is still wanting to call this a pilot program, but it really puts us in a position to have NDOT, feel good about regulating it and carrying it forward as something that we have on the menu here in Nashville. So any questions about the substitute?
I caught that.
Well, I'm glad you did. Any questions about the substitute? All right, all those in favor of the substitute?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Any not voting? Okay, and the bill as substituted, any discussion, questions, comments on that? All those in favor of the bill as substituted, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, any against? Any not voting? Excellent. All right, up next we have BL 2022-1470 by Councilmember Pulley. This amends section 1308-080 of the Metro Code to authorize the use of data collection and video technologies solely for the purpose of traffic monitoring and management by the Metropolitan Department of Information Technology Services and the Nashville Department of Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded. Thank you. If we have a representative from ITS, Mr. Durbin is here. Can you just let us know a little bit about what this does?
I'm happy to. The person who can really speak to it, I think, is still stuck in transportation. That's Jesse Turner. I think he's speaking to similar bills over there. So in 2018, we brought a resolution to council that basically put us in a spot of participation with TDOT on the I-24 corridor that they chose a number of technologies to manage or monitor traffic. Devices were put in place, then the surveillance legislation went into place, and because the surveillance legislation is in place, we have not allowed them to turn on features of those tools. Part of the agreement was also, once they put those things in on those corridors, I-24 and 440, they were to give those to us, and they would be managed by us. So what this does, this allows those things to happen, them to turn them over to us to use those tools for NDOT purposes, for the express purposes we're speaking to here. And furthermore, we have been consistently prodded by TDOT because they are not able to pay their vendors because we are holding this entire process up, since we're not holding up our part of the bargain. So we've been working on this for about a year now to try to get this to the point where we can actually use these things. And the introduction of the transportation plan kind of added additional impetus. Director Alarcon's arrival added additional impetus. The traffic management center that's getting ready to come online has added additional impetus for this. And so that's the purpose of this bill, allowing this to happen and then allowing us to accept these devices and run these tools, for the the city.
Well, thank you for that explanation. Councilmember Cash.
And so the management part of what's described here is not enforcement. This isn't an enforcement tool at all, right?
There is not an enforcement component of this. It's monitoring for traffic management purposes.
Right. So the traffic management might be like changing a light to green to let cars go through to unjam.
That is
What's the? I just don't. I'm trying to get what the management part is. I get that it's not survey, or that it's not enforcement, but.
Well, it's also, and this is where my coworker Jesse Turner would be able to speak to this better. But it's for things like understanding traffic flows. It's for understanding number of of vehicles that are going through at different times of day. It's taking those counts. And understanding those types of things. Eventually, I guess it could be used, but again, I'm not an expert in transportation technology. That is someone not in this room right now.
So what I'm hearing is it's more about data collection for management purposes, not about real-time management.
That is a good way to put it. Though eventually real-time management could be a part of it, it just.
I was gonna say, if I might, on 24, there's arm out there with kind of directional things over each lane, so there is some real-time management of trying to direct which lane maybe if there's a blockage up late early or something, so
Gotcha.
yeah, it's both.
And that is absolutely a part of this technology.
If I may recognize, I was about to say, Councilmember
Just
Jameson.
to
Mike
echo
Jameson from the administration wanted to
Durbin,
comment.
that it is about traffic flow and traffic flow alone. We did approach, the primary architect of 1308-080, the surveillance restrictions, is Councilman Rosenberg. Went to him first and worked with him. He is comfortable with this, and you'll see provisions, I think, listed in the analysis that make sure this is about traffic monitoring flow holistically. There is no license plate recognition, there's no facial recognition, it can't be recorded, it won't be reviewed by law enforcement for law enforcement purposes. So if he's comfortable, we're comfortable.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions, comments, discussion on this?
Now you show up.
All right, well, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any not voting? All right, we have one item left. This is BL 2022-1474 by Roten, Benedict, and Gamble. This approves a contract between Metro and Granicus LLC to provide service, maintenance, and licensing related to various platforms, including but not limited to Granicus government meetings, short-term rentals monitoring, communication, cloud, and web streaming services for Metro-wide internal and external usage. Do we have a motion on this?
So moved.
Moved. I'll second it.
Second it.
Okay. So I guess, Mr. Durbin, if I would go to you first, as the person who would know the most about this in the room, can you just let us know a little bit about what this is and where we're at with this contract and what services they provide with us?
Sure. So Granicus is a company that we have had arrangements with, and for kind of other companies that they have bought over time. And so they are kind of a big conglomeration of governmental services at this point. And typically, we have had 5-year contracts. And what we're trying to do here is, with this single contract, tie with the procurement director's absolute approval and, her approval, is tie all of these things into one 10-year contract based on the length of kind of the technology lifespan associated with these things. So the first item is the system that you all are using to run council meetings is a Granicus product, was put in last year, so live meeting and the various sorts are pieces of that. Metro Nashville Network has used live streaming services from this product for a number of years, probably 5 or 6 years at this point. The codes department has used a product that was purchased by Granicus called Host Compliance to manage short-term rentals. And one of the things that Council Lady Allen emailed me about earlier and wanted clarification was kind of, are all the same components of the contract that has historically been in place with codes still in place? And the answer is yes. We worked with them on that to make sure that as that contract migrated into this one, we kept all of those same things, and Director Hall kind of reiterated, had somebody reiterate that for us today for Council Lady Allen. I don't know whether she shared any of that. And then finally, many of council members, departments, use kind of Metro's standard for email newsletters and other newsletters. It's been part of Nashville.gov for 12 or 13 years now, called Gov Delivery. It's another purchase by Granicus. So that is the free, we purchase it, and to make it available to anybody within Metro who wants to use it, and no additional charge to them. And so that's the other service that we have used. All of these things are kind of things that we see in place for the very long term. And thus, we are coming asking to approve this contract at a 10-year time period versus a 5-year time period.
Thank you for that information. The last thing I was not aware of, the Gov Delivery, I guess, is that, you said that's available to council members?
Absolutely.
Okay, that sounds interesting. The only thing that I would caution folks is I don't think you can campaign with it. Like, you still have to keep your
That is
own,
correct.
you still have to keep your
That is
own mailing list.
100%
To use that. So maybe easier to just keep your MailChimp. Anyway, I didn't mean to, it sounds wonderful, but, all right, any other questions, discussions, comments on this legislation? Okay, well, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Andy not voting. Excellent, thank you. And that
Before you get away, I would like to thank you for all the work you do, but especially for that new monitor in there. So us folks in the,
I noticed that today.
us folks in the back corner can actually see what's going on.
happy to.
Did you hang that yourself?
I personally got on the ladder.
I thought I saw you with a ladder
That's me.
yesterday.
That's my forte.
two people pointed out to me during the meeting, and I was like, what are you bothering? I don't understand what you're pointing at. And then I saw this massive screen. Yeah, it's great.
Yes.
It's gonna light up my face from the left. It's gonna look great. All right, thank you all so much. That concludes the business of the GovOps Committee.